What's good with Donna? Cassava root. That's what we're going to talk about today. I use cassava in many different recipes and in many different ways. One of my very favorite snacks or an addition to a meal is fried cassava, which I'm going to make in a separate video. You can catch that if you want to look on my YouTube channel. Cassava is definitely a real food and definitely something that you can incorporate into your real life. I know you're busy. I know things get crazy. I've certainly been there with raising four children. I understand how crazy busy things can get, but our health begins to decline when we're not taking the time to eat healthy food. And that's what I wanted to show you today, these different ways that we can understand and use cassava. This is a tropical root vegetable that's native to Brazil, but it's actually grown across the Caribbean in many tropical areas. It's got a lot of nutrition. It's really good for us. Some people might say, I heard cassava is poisonous. Cassava actually does contain cyanide. However, just like many other foods that we actually eat that contain toxins, when they're prepared properly, it's no longer an issue. In the United States, the primary cassava root that we find is the sweet cassava root, which has very little cyanide in it at all. The bitter cassava root that you find in Africa, that has more cyanide, but even that is safe to eat when it's prepared properly. Cassava has a fibrous bark-like exterior. It's really, really hard. You can't squeeze it. Probably couldn't break it unless I really tried really hard. Cassava has a bright white starchy interior, and that's the part that is oh so good. Cassava has been eaten for centuries, for probably even longer than that. Its first recorded history was in 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And actually they wrote about cassava in some of the historical accounts of that trip. Cassava root is one of the primary sources of healthy carbohydrates throughout the world. Cassava root has a low glycemic index, about half that of potatoes, which makes this ideal for people who are concerned about their carbohydrate consumption because these carbohydrates are used much more effectively and efficiently inside the body. They're a really good source of energy for us. Cassava can be boiled, it can be baked, it can be mashed. It can be used, oftentimes is used as a substitute for white flour in many gluten-free recipes. This is cassava flour right here. I use cassava flour quite often in my gluten-free yummy baking. Cassava is also packed with nutrients: vitamin C, riboflavin, niacin, thiamine, magnesium, potassium, vitamin C, and it even has some protein in it. It's not a great source of protein, but it does have some protein in it. Cassava is also a resistant starch, so it's very good for your gut health. We want to soak the cassava after it's been peeled and cut in water for about 20 minutes. After it's been soaked, pour that water off and then put a pan on the stove. Turn that on, get that going, fill that with water, and put the cassava in the water. Boil it for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending upon what you're using it for. Throw that water away, and now your cassava is perfectly safe to eat. And you can make chips and fries and mashed cassava. You can also mash it up and use it with other flours to use it in baking. Sounds great, Donna. Where do I get it? Well, the cassava root itself can be purchased in most grocery stores. A lot of grocery stores are carrying some of the more exotic things. I know a lot of you are thinking, it's not exotic. I've eaten it my whole life. And a lot of people have, but a lot of people haven't. Trust me. So when you're trying to move from the traditional American diet of processed foods and quick and easy foods, drive-through foods, you're going to want to start to find interesting ways to keep your diet healthy and to keep it delicious and to keep it interesting, right? I buy my cassava flour online. I like Anthony's organic products. I'm not getting paid to say this. I've just found that they're high quality products. I try to buy organic products whenever I can because I just want to get the least amount of chemicals in my body as possible. I know it's not always affordable for folks, But online I found that a large bag of cassava flour is not too terribly expensive. I have found it in some regular grocery stores. It seems to be much more expensive per pound when I buy it that way. You can go to specialty stores and find it there as well. In some areas, you can actually find cassava already peeled and cut and ready to prepare in your frozen section. All right, let's get this cut and I'll show you what it looks like. The first thing we want to do is cut the ends off. It's very, very hard. Keep your fingers out of the way. We'll cut both ends off. Now, if you see a lot of black stripes that kind of stretch through the cassava, that means that it's beyond where you want to eat it. It's a little more ripe than you want to eat. I usually cut mine in about 2-inch sections. Now you'll see there's some of the black on here, but if we continue to cut, I think we'll find that some of this is plenty fresh enough to eat. See, as we continue to cut, you can see that this is pure white. I'm gonna just cut the end off of this one till I get down to where it looks nice and clear. That's pretty good. We'll cut that part out. Now, you want to be very careful. Again, keep your fingers out of the way, but you can see that this barky outside kind of comes off like that. So I don't want to waste any of the meat of the cassava. So I'm just going to carefully cut around and cut this bark away. Now we have our cassava. It's all cut and ready to prepare. I have my compost bucket here. I grow a garden in the springtime and it's nice to have that. Now these are all ready to be put into the water. I'm going to just cut the pieces into quarters about like that. And that is cassava root. Be sure to check out my video on how to make sweet potato tortillas with cassava flour. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like to see more videos. You can also follow me on Instagram at What's Good with Donna. Please leave your comments down below. Let me know how you're going to be using cassava. What's good with Donna? Today's real life, real food, cassava.